It's Monday, January 6th. You're listening to today's episode, the podcast where we discuss the most recent installments of a different series every show. And for our first comedy review of this year, we're taking a look at the pilot of a new Fox sitcom from Joel Church Cooper, the creator of Brockmire. The show, Going Dutch, which airs Thursdays, features a Ted Lasso-style fish-out-of-water story about a hot-headed, highly decorated, and wildly narcissistic colonel played by Denis Leary, who gets reassigned to a dysfunctional military base in the Netherlands after a career-jeopardizing outburst during a training exercise. Now, it's 2025, and we've done a lot of these shows, and I don't remember ever bringing up Brockmire before. Do you remember what that show was about?
No, I only remember it ran for like 4 or 5 seasons.
I think it was based on a Funny or Die sketch, kind of like Ted Lasso, about a baseball play-by-play announcer who gets fired after a profanity-filled breakdown while live on air after discovering his wife was having an affair.
The breakdown reminds me a lot of Bruce Almighty because he has a breakdown on air because he's like a newscaster, right? And then he ends up losing his job because of it.
And the colonel in this show doesn't really have a breakdown. He's more just shit-talking his general.
The commanding officer.
Yeah, did you recognize who the general was, General Davidson? No, he's played by Joe Morton. He's from Eureka. He's Cyborg's dad in the DCEU. He's also in Terminator 2. But going back right quick to Hank Azaria, I wanted to point out, he's 60 years old now, right?
He's only 60?
Yeah, he's only 60. But how old do you think he was when he joined The Simpsons?
Well, with that, I would say he was probably in his 20s, so like 25.
He was actually younger because he didn't originally voice Mo. He voiced someone else in the pilot, so he was 22 years old.
22 only.
Right?
Wow.
So, Going Dutch, the title of the series, right? Have you ever done that with your friends where you all split the bill?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did. That's what it means.
That's very normal.
I didn't know whether that
You've
was
never
what
heard
Going
of the Going Dutch
meant.
expression. Every single country, not everywhere in the world, considers it a good thing. Some places find it insulting. West Asia, Africa, Spain. But like you're implying, the show doesn't really make a big point of the meaning of Going Dutch to be splitting the bill.
Well, it's more literal.
Yes,
yeah.
It's the main character is physically dropped into the Netherlands. How did the Netherlands get its name? Do you know? I have a multiple choice guessing game if you want. Alfonso Netherland was a Spaniard who founded the land in 1581.
Okay.
Netherlands just refers to its low elevation, Netherlands. It comes from an old Dutch term that means woodland or people there used to not wear pants. Netherlands.
I feel like you want me to pick D. It feels tight. I'm going to go with C, the wood.
It comes from, that's actually Holland. Holland means woodland. So Netherlands, it just refers to the low elevation. And it was a province for a while. And then I think it was only in the 1800s where it became its own country. Or where it became its own, kingdom. So we're introduced to this show. We got this crazy colonel played by Denis Leary.
Denis Leary, and he's just fitting the same role that like Kelsey Grammer from the Frasier reboot did, Mr. Incredible from The Incredibles 2, George Lopez and Lopez v. Lopez, Scott Grimes and Ted. He's the dad that's kind of estranged from his daughter. It reminded me a lot of Fubar. In fact, it almost felt like a full ripoff.
So explain to me how in Ted in Scott Grimes' character, who's he estranged from?
Well, he has to adapt to the new world. He's set.
I know that his like niece comes in to live with him.
So he said that like it's the dad that's set on doing things a traditional way, and then suddenly they learn that this new world they have to adapt to.
I feel like it's a rite of passage for aging actors. Because I have a few more examples to add to yours. Paul Reiser in the reboot, that was the Hulu show from a few years ago. Tim Allen Shifting Gears, which comes out 2 days from now.
I was about to say any Tim Allen series also.
Well, that one literally has him and his estranged daughter as well. I think played by the girl from Two Broke Girls, Kat Dennings.
Yeah.
Lopez v. Lopez, you mentioned that one. Steven Weber in Indebted, that was where the parents, I think, go back and live with the kids because they like lose their money. And Frasier, he buys the building that his son lives in to live close to him. So yeah, I think that is certainly a fair comparison to make right at the start of this. But we've already talked about General Davidson. Let's go to one of the other cast members who we see in that first scene, Danny Pudi.
Yes.
Best known for murdering Larry King live on his interview in 2020.
Oh, you mean with the DuckTales? I'm on DuckTales there?
Yes, for some reason people find that incredibly fun to go back and watch.
He hasn't aged. It's like, I guess remember him
He's
from
45.
Community. He just looks exactly the same to me.
He has the same haircut. If you go back to his roles from like the mid-2000s, it's the same exact thing. I think the only one that I found where he looked different was maybe in the ER episode that he started his career on. But who do you think is weirder, Abed or Sheldon?
Abed or Sheldon? Sheldon, definitely.
I would tend to agree because Sheldon or Jim Parsons
Yeah.
is has like $160 million. He is so like he has to be so distanced from society at this point. At least Danny Pudi, I think, is like more ingrained with what's going on a day-to-day basis. With
It
the rest
seems
of the
like he's stuck in almost playing the same role, kind of typecast.
I think he's played like in Mythic Quest. I think he played the anti-Abed character. From what I've heard, I haven't actually seen him in it, but he plays Exo Major Abraham Shaw here, who is like the second in command to the colonel. He goes with him to the Netherlands when he's reassigned. And the last question I'll ask about Community is, do you know what show it was crossed over with?
Oh, I do, but I forgot.
I think he even made the appearance in the other show.
Cougar Town.
You got it. Okay, there it is. So yeah, so Colonel Patrick Quinn. Let's talk about Leary now. All right, he's got a pretty full career. And when we first saw that this show was coming out, you said that you only knew him as a serious actor, which is hilarious because he started off as a stand-up comic. He even still does stand-up.
And then he did Rescue Me. I know that was a comedy.
Well, let's wait on that.
Okay.
So like he starts off as a stand-up comic. He's also a musician. Like I think it's one of his first songs, which on MTV, which really hits his career off in the 90s. He was the dad in Sandlot. You might not know that.
No, I did. I saw his Wikipedia.
Okay, that one shocked me. He was also the dad in The Amazing Spider-Man.
Yes, that's where I had seen him from. That's one of the few things I think I've seen any of his roles.
And so like they always cast a big deal for like the love interest dad, Gwen
Right.
Stacy or Michael Keaton in the more updated one. He also was Sabretooth in Ice Age.
Yeah. No,
So-
I know. He was, and that, so Spider-Man, Ice Age, and then The Sandlot. Those are the only 3 movies I've ever seen him in. Any of his TV stuff, not really.
Yeah, so I do want to give credit where credit is due. You mentioned it already, Rescue Me. But in 2008, Bryan Cranston had this moment in culture where TV producers and fans alike both realized that comedians could do drama. And it led to Bill Hader and Barry and Bob Odenkirk in Breaking Bad, but also in every other role that
And
he's
I
taken
remember
up
with
since.
Bryan Cranston, they did not want him. They did not think that he was going to be a good fit. And then, yeah, he kind of, what's the expression? He like broke the dam or whatever, opened the door for a lot of these people.
Yeah, I think he
to do it.
blackmailed one of the producers or something. But he's also coming back, I think, in the new Malcolm in the Middle series, which should be pretty interesting. Steve Carell started getting roles where he played a serious character. Jason Bateman in Ozark. But I think we're kind of ignoring the fact that as much as you want to say that Leary was a comedy, that Rescue Me was a comedy, it was really a response to 9/11 and where he was playing a firefighter. And yes, there's comic moments, but I think it was one of FX's first shows. And I don't think it gets enough credit for showing that someone who has basically done comedies throughout their entire career can do a more serious version of their acting.
And I know that Denis Leary is a huge supporter of firefighters. I think his
And
cousin
military.
was one. Yeah.
So that's where he becomes a history buff. And he knows a lot about Colonel George S. Patton, who he based this character off of. George S. Patton, are you familiar with his World War II, World War I stuff? He actually was like an Olympian back in the early 1900s, but he was a brilliant, if not abrasive, commander who excelled in tank warfare and played a key role in Allied success in North Africa, Sicily, and Europe. Did not get along with Eisenhower on the negative side of things. He held problematic views. He smacked soldiers who he considered cowards because they had shell shock or PTSD nowadays. So he didn't believe in that. He elicited some very derogatory remarks about Jews in his diaries and was a bit too chummy with the idea of rehabilitating Nazis, like the ones in charge.
Wow.
So yeah, he's got his pros and he's got his cons. I don't think when Leary talks about bringing Patton into this character, he's talking about the anti-Semitic viewpoints.
The bad parts.
He had like an obsession with uniform and keeping like things straight and making sure that people, like he would send his officers around to go like lecture people on their uniforms. And you could see Leary in this takes a lot of pride in the blue, as he puts it. But the last thing I'll say about Patton is that he was 60 when he died. How old do you think that Leary is?
Dude, Leary's like 67.
He's 67, and the mandatory age of retirement for his job for usually a colonel is 62.
So he's even older than that. Okay.
Yeah. So he's a little old for this role. However, I think by casting people around him, and he's an actor, so it doesn't really matter. Do you have what are your thoughts? Do you think that you have more pros or cons to this show?
I actually have the same amount.
Oh, so it's equals out.
Equal, yeah. And I think that to start off with my pros, the show is funny. There were some jokes that had me laughing pretty hard, like from an army soldier running straight into a door when trying to lead Quinn to the base commander to the full army.
Did that not remind you of Dennis Medical?
That's actually one of the comparisons I had.
I mean, that specific joke, the Matt Nurse guy, I could see doing that exact thing.
Yes, and the fact that's why I'm pretty sure that character, I didn't get his name for the episode, but that's who I think he's going to kind of be playing or channeling. The full army dancing when Patrick turned the corner. Also, the laundry team having a full dance number in the tulip parade.
Do a little description of like what happens once he is cast into this like small role in this army base that is considered to be the worst because it's just out into nowhere. It's the least important U.S. Army base or service base in the world.
And that's the premise that I found so funny because Colonel Quinn, after he is reassigned, he goes to the Netherlands, and the army is run by his estranged daughter, Maggie.
Which he doesn't know.
Yes, and they clash over leadership styles. That's kind of where the FUBAR connection came in, because it was like, I know that in the pilot, Arnold Schwarzenegger, for that, he's a CIA operative, and then he goes to Guyana, and then his daughter's working there as well, and yeah, he wasn't expecting to see Maggie there, and they clash over leadership styles, culminating in a disastrous tulip
when
festival.
You say they clash over leadership styles, they get into a spit spat, like, as soon as he sees that it's her, and he's like, what are you doing here? And she's like, Dad, like what?
They don't have a great relationship.
But he also like challenges the way that he sees her way as just too lackadaisical.
Well, and that's why I found it funny, because the Netherlands, they were saying, is so peaceful that there's no need for them to really have like an army at all. Right,
but that was what the general said too when he sent him there. He's like, you're going to be so bored. You're going to. It
was definitely an FU, because he was bad talking him. And then the costumes I thought were also good for the show. Like, I like the way that Denis Leary looked.
The fans have spoken, and their biggest grievance is not the age of Denis Leary, like we talked about. It's not the uniform. In fact, the uniform is supposed to have been put together very well. Like, the amount of awards that he has on his chest, like, that design could very easily be put in the wrong way. But since that's part of his character, they made an extra effort to make sure that was all right. They do say that he had like the wrong haircut for a colonel. Like, there's a very official looking haircut, and he just has Denis Leary hair. But the big issue that most fans have had is the Dutchness aspect of this, because most of the Netherlandians, as you see them in the show, are speaking with German accents. And when they even name the army base Stroopsdorf, and this is straight from the IMDb page, someone went in and added a piece of trivia saying Dorf is not Dutch, but it's a German word. Dorp is Dutch. So it should have been Stroopdorp.
So that's actually one of my comparisons was Bumper in Berlin, because how the Netherlands was portrayed, not only with the people's accents, but also just how it looked, all the greenery and stuff. It reminded me of when they shot that series in Berlin. So that makes more sense.
But they did film it not in the Netherlands, but in an Irish army base where I guess the Irish army was actually still there carrying out drills, and they would lend them stuff like the actors' equipment and gear throughout the filming process. So it was filmed on a real military base, but not in the Netherlands. And they cast, it seems like, a lot of people who aren't Dutch specifically. So that's what I think people have pointed out as their main criticism. But that, for a comedy, especially when it's not really, it's an absurd comedy, right?
Right.
These characters are not supposed to be some role models.
And it seems like Fox is trying to expand, because they have animation domination, so they're known for like a lot of cartoons, but it seems like they're trying to expand their live action comedies, because the only one I can think of that's still on air is like Animal Control.
Fox owns animation domination.
The Sunday block, Krapopolis and Family Guy and Simpsons, but I'm saying for live action, I can't think of too many live action comedy shows that they have.
Yeah, and you've mentioned some of the jokes that you liked in this thing. As the episode goes on and he gets closer to his daughter, you can already see the ties that they're making for a long series arc. By the end of the episode, they go a real sappy route by making it seem like he may have cried when they were talking to each other.
Because he doesn't cry, apparently.
There were some funny jokes that you didn't mention, like the teen center that was made without any teens in it, because the teens aren't allowed. You did mention the interpretive dance about the laundry. When you went to the Netherlands, there were a lot of cheese shops, but there weren't a lot of bowling alleys or interpretive dancing. But you didn't do a lot of clubbing. It was so cold.
Yes.
Yeah. So
And because I've only gone like November and December, and the show is very short. It's only 20 minutes.
Yes. So we're only reviewing the first episode. And that's what makes pilots so hard, because you can look at a pilot of like The Office or Parks and Rec, and it's like they graduated, they evolved,
Right.
and they became great shows. This one, are the cheese jokes any gooda? No?
God.
Okay. All right. So the main character is disciplined for being too much of a maverick. We already mentioned that that there's this common trope in TV where aging actors end up like teaming up with their kids,
Yes.
But there's also the one where like right at the get-go, the main character is being they're being fired or they're being demoted in some way. Yeah, Bad Monkey, we saw it. We saw it in The Shield. Edge of Tomorrow, the beginning of that, where Tom Cruise is sent into but the main, I think, comparison I would make, because I'm going to ask yours now, is Space Force, the Steve Carell show.
Right, yeah, Space Force. I would have said Major Pain. So it's been over about 16 years since I've seen this movie, but it's about a discharged Marine who has to train a JROTC team, but it still deals with someone recently discharged from combat and kind of having to do a lower position. I also saw elements, even though I never saw the film, of Life of the Party, the 2018 Melissa McCarthy movie where she joins college and joins her daughter there.
Mm-hmm.
And then she, I think, becomes popular as well. But Major Pain specifically because it was a comedy about, a discharged Marine. But also, I know that Fox has tried to do a show like this before in 2014.
Enlisted?
Yes. Okay. So you didn't know about it. Yeah. So it was also a comedy, also centered on a family, three brothers, also about the U.S. Army that got canceled after one season.
I never saw it. Did you see it?
No, I didn't.
The reviews have talked about it a lot, said that this is a mix between Brockmire and Enlisted. And so I was curious if you'd heard of it before too. Episode 2, I was thinking about, instead of doing the pilot, we don't normally do the second episode, but that one's called Tanks for Nothing. And so that pun alone was making me think maybe we should, but then we ended up going with this one. The reviews, Collider, Decider, what are you going to give it?
I'm going to be giving it a 5 because I don't think it's going
5 out of 10?
Yeah, 5 out of 10 because I don't think it's going to be capturing a huge audience, even with Denis Leary's name attached to it. This is nothing new at all. Like I said, it felt like a straight rip-off of Fubar at different points. I'm kind of getting tired of, again, the trope about the old person having to really adapt to the new world. There was a couple funny jokes here and there, but it seems like none of the characters, I realized this at the end of the episode, changed. Even though there's that phone call between Patrick and Maggie, it didn't seem like they went through any emotional change throughout the episode.
It's trying to have the same heart that Ted Lasso has, though.
And I don't think it's able to do it. They tried to infuse it, but I don't think it's working.
I mean, Jason Sudeikis' performance as like just this wholesome guy is not the same as a kind of a narcissist who has to learn his way. I'll be curious to see how this ends up. But
also, I only knew really Patrick and Maggie by the end of the episode. I felt like we didn't get like a good representation of like other characters in the army, like St. Denis Medical. Even
I do like that it's a small cast. In a 20-minute show, you kind of want to keep that tight.
Right, but in St. Denis Medical, even in the pilot, we got a pretty good sense of the whole hospital, even if those characters were only on screen for a couple minutes. Here, I think that the show is average. 5 out of 10. Not that good, not that bad, just middle of the road.
I feel like it's too early to call. I do find that also that it's funny. You said Lopez v. Lopez was one of the shows that has also done a similar thing. But the girl who plays Conway, the one who was introducing them when they first got there to the cheese place and the laundry room and all that stuff, she is Lacey Mosley, played the new iCarly character, the one who was supposed to substitute.
Okay. So she was one of the main characters.
Jenna McCurdy, right?
Yeah.
And then she also was in Lopez vs. Lopez as well. Let's see. Maggie, you said that you mentioned her a few times, but did you recognize her from Dave? Did you recognize her from anything else?
Dave was the only thing, I think, yeah.
Okay, yeah, she's blonde now, so that was a thing. And then Catherine Tate's also in the show. I don't know if we saw her, though.
No, we did, yeah.
Oh,
that was actually really surprising. Yeah, she plays Katja Vanderhoff, and she only showed up, I think, for a couple minutes before the Tulip Festival.
She's a main character. I think she's going to play the love interest to Leary. And Danny Pudi, the reviews have mentioned him as possibly the anchor of the show, the one who's going to carry it when Leary is off doing his own rants.
He's probably my favorite character.
Yeah, it's nice to see him back and doing and not just in DuckTales. Collider, Decider, Hollywood Reporter, they all were, I think, mostly positive towards it. They're like, it's going to have its growing pains. Ebert was the holdout and said it didn't even have a smile. And I have to disagree with that because there were a couple of chuckles in there. Yeah, the IMDb rating is low right now, but it's too early to call. There's only like, I don't know, 20 reviews or something.
But it's a tomato on Rotten Tomatoes.
Again, too early to call. That was like, it said 80 some percent, but like nothing was basing that off of. There was no user or audience score for it. So really it's just brand new as a TV show, and you should check it out if you like comedies, because, you know, like these all can evolve into something bigger, and this one's just too early to really judge. You're saying 5 out of 10 though.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.